Mark Zuckerberg is currently having a $145 billion psychological meltdown, and a $1.3 trillion empire is literally being weaponized right in front of our faces just to soothe the terrifying ego of a completely unfireable CEO. He is burning through cash at an exorbitant rate, aggressively incinerating the established rules of Silicon Valley. But this is not just some embarrassing VR failure or a sudden obsession with thick gold chains. This massive identity crisis is secretly subsidizing a ruthless scorched-earth war designed to financially starve every single one of his competitors to death. Because look, we all know exactly what a traditional midlife crisis looks like. It's a highly predictable, mathematically standard phenomenon. You hit your late 30s, you stare into the absolute void of your own mortality, and you panic. You get incredibly obvious hair plugs, you buy a ridiculously overpriced guitar, and you initiate a massive, high-friction divorce that ruins your social circle. And suddenly, almost like clockwork, you develop a devout affinity for listening to 3-hour-long episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience. When the architect of one of the world's most stupid apps, a guy possessing a net worth well into excess of $170 billion, encounters this exact same psychological milestone, the resulting transformation extends way beyond some pathetic personal idiosyncrasies. For Mark Zuckerberg, entering his late 30s didn't just mean buying a sports car. It necessitated the complete, synchronized overhaul of his physical body, his public aesthetic, and the overarching strategic trajectory of a $1.3 trillion technology conglomerate. To completely wrap your minds around this midlife crisis, you have to first understand the historical baseline. The hyper-sanitized, carefully calibrated Silicon Valley executive that defined Mark Zuckerberg's initial decade in the public eye died. Because for a decade, he operated as a corporate pariah. The guy possessed immense, terrifying structural and algorithmic power, but he wielded absolutely zero cultural capital. The public, well, they thought he was a complete moron. Because for a decade, he was the internet's favorite punching bag. He was the billionaire who would show up and have no riz, and he would show up to congressional testimonies and look like a robot and sipping water like a fucking lizard. Who could forget the deeply uncanny 2016 Smoking Meats Facebook livestream? That was great. Or the infamous paparazzi photographs capturing him riding a hydrofoil surfboard and his face heavily smeared in an opaque, terrifying layer of white zinc sunscreen. He looked like a mime, desperately trying to escape reality. Now, why does this guy's midlife crisis manifest in a completely different way than me or you? Well, this guy takes his $1.3 trillion conglomerate, and it's basically a biological extension of himself. His brush with death, which most people experience before a midlife crisis, was, well, his whole company setting on fire between 2021 and 2022. Because during that time, Meta took tens of billions of dollars and completely incinerated it in the Horizon Worlds adventure, building poorly rendered, embarrassing, legless avatars and virtual reality headsets the broader consumer market overwhelmingly and aggressively thought was fucking stupid. And from that, the financial punishment was pretty severe, because Wall Street thought this was stupid too, and the company stock cratered by over 70%. And on top of that, technology media permanently declared Mark Zuckerberg a washed-up legacy founder who permanently lost his grip on modern software trends. All while Wall Street activists were aggressively demanding that he step down, because what the fuck are you doing, Zuck? And this was his absolute breaking point, because he failed to protect his equity valuation and completely failed to protect his personal reputation. And the logic was that, well, if I can't protect my reputation or my finances by being some weird, nihilistic, apologetic weirdo, then, maybe I should be myself, or, something of myself that looks cool. And out of this came a highly publicized aesthetic rebirth. The sterile boardroom polo shirts, gone. The boring gray t-shirts, permanently incinerated. In its place came a highly curated, hyper-masculine persona. Zuckerberg intentionally grew out his curly hairs and began sporting thick, custom gold chains. And he even adopted oversized Balenciaga-style streetwear. Whoa. You guys might be in the comments arguing, oh, he's the same weirdo, he just has a stylist now who makes him look kind of cool. But no, I think the physical transformation is equally jarring, because he transitioned to training intensely in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and publicly sparring with literal UFC champions. What the fuck? This was not just a mere makeover. This was a warlord waking up and deliberately telegraphing to his competitors that the era of the apologetic and easily pressured tech founder was completely and utterly fucking dead. As this rebirth solidified and the deployment of Mark Zuckerberg's personal capital started to actually pay off, he started doing some other cool things. Like, when your wife asks for a nice garden ornament, you're probably going to go out to the hardware store. But this bespoke billionaire decided to indulge and do something stupid by commissioning a massive garden monument. Collaborating with an artist named Daniel Arsham out of New York City, Zuckerberg literally installed a 7-foot-tall, bright, turquoise Roman statue of his wife, Priscilla Chan, right out in the courtyard of their estate. Wow. And this goes even further, because the automotive world was highly impressed by his Honda Odyssey that was actually a stretched-out Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. Yes, he made a minivan for his wife that boasts 650 horsepower, a 4.0 twin-turbo V8. Yes, he chopped it in half and stretched it into an elongated 3-row limousine that's actually a minivan, really. It's an absolute abomination of automotive engineering, and yeah, he just did it because he could, I guess. If you're sitting there wondering how on earth does a CEO get away with this level of personal flamboyance while not having his board send him to a psych ward, well, yeah, he has it completely locked down, because Mark Zuckerberg holds roughly 13% economic ownership in Meta via Class B supermajority shares, which he wields 10 votes per individual share. He retains approximately 61% of total voting control. This is the most terrifying financial fact in Silicon Valley. There is no hedge fund capable of mounting a hostile proxy fight. There is no institutional voting bloc that can override his directives, and there is absolutely no independent board of directors empowered to remove him from office. He is unfireable by definition. This dynamic is fucking insane, and armed with an infinite ad revenue generated slush fund and zero structural accountability, personal boredom instantly translates into multi-billion-dollar corporate mandates. This isn't just shiny object syndrome, this has subjected Meta's balance sheet to a graveyard of erratic, highly capital-intensive pivots. The most notable one, the staggering $83.6 billion bonfire at Reality Labs. This is the GDP of a small country we're talking about, completely set on fire for virtual reality that nobody fucking asked for. And just as quickly as that mandate started, Mark Zuckerberg decides, well, fuck the metaverse, let's move into smart glasses or artificial intelligence. Yeah, he literally steers that company straight into a massive iceberg on the daily. The psychology of the tech monarch is frequently characterized by extreme, mind-bending contradictions. This is perhaps best illustrated by the geographical footprint of his modern corporate midlife crisis. For nearly 2 decades, Zuckerberg has been actively preaching the virtues of open connectivity. He has sold us on global community integration and democratization of the open web. But what is he doing in his private life? He has systematically constructed a 2,300-acre fortress on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. This property is known as the Kaloa'o Ranch. It is not just a vacation home, it's an exercise in extreme isolationism and paranoia. We're talking about a compound featuring a 5,000 square foot blast-proof underground bunker. This property also features a massive agricultural operation explicitly designed to raise world-class Wagyu cattle, and they're fed exclusively on macadamia nuts and beer. Wow. All the best for the billionaire's cows, I guess. What the fuck? This architectural layout shows off his pure cognitive dissonance. He is building the very digital systems intended to harvest the attention and behavioral data of the entire globe, while simultaneously constructing an off-grid, self-sustaining doomsday bunker to physically escape the social externalities those exact systems generate. He is selling you the Matrix while building a fallout shelter to hide from the very people trapped inside of it. To fund this sprawling new mandate and pivot away from the absolute unmitigated disaster of the metaverse, Zuckerberg had to enact a brutal shift in internal management philosophy. Meta utilized the broader macroeconomic environment to systematically strip away the leverage that software engineers had accumulated over the previous decade. For years, engineers at Meta were treated like royalty, with free massages, exorbitant salaries, and total job security. But the executive suite did not use the scalpel to fix their budget, they used a massive fucking sledgehammer. The company engaged in blunt force mass terminations, stripping away any power from the engineering base literally overnight to ruthlessly and aggressively fund the next frontier of his algorithmic warfare. He needed the cash to buy weapons for the next war, and he didn't care who the fuck he had to execute to get that. The mass aggression of UFC sparring hasn't just stayed in the gym, it is mapped flawlessly onto Meta's broader macroeconomic strategy. The Fuckerberg of yesterday and the Zuckerberg of today who, decides to build a bunker and fire everyone at a whim. Well, yeah, he completely rebranded himself and proclaimed himself as the champion of the open web. He wants you to think he is the good guy now or something. Because beneath the utopian, flowery rhetoric of democratized artificial intelligence lies a ruthless scorched-earth corporate strategy. He is actively weaponizing open source software as an anti-competitive bludgeon. The fundamental economics driving Meta's open weight strategy can be understood through a classic brutal economic framework. Commoditize your complement to maximize the profit margins of a core monopoly. In Meta's case, they're highly targeted, terrifyingly accurate digital advertising machine. A corporation must ensure that every complementary product in the supply chain becomes a cheap, zero-margin commodity. Meta generates tens of billions of dollars in pure unadulterated profit from its ad auction architecture. Artificial intelligence is not Meta's primary commercial product. It is simply a back-end infrastructure layer to serve you more ads. Conversely, pure-play artificial intelligence laboratories, companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, must sell their models to survive. By investing billions to train frontier models and subsequently giving the weights away for absolutely free, Meta is actively destroying the foundational business models of its rivals. He is pulling the oxygen out of the room. Because this is the exact same strategy Microsoft used back in the 1990s, when they bundled Internet Explorer for free to bankrupt Netscape Navigator. It's the same playbook, but with tons more steroids, because Mark Zuckerberg has to burn billions of dollars of AI compute costs to run an unsustainable loss leader campaign, specifically designed to break the backs of his Silicon Valley foes. To wage his massive midlife crisis war, Mark Zuckerberg is hoarding physical chips like a doomsday prepper, hoarding rations inside his basement. He has raised Meta's capital expenditure forecast to astronomical, completely reality warping levels. The company is actively spending between $130 and $145 billion to acquire hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs, plus localized power grids and the purchase of physical land for sprawling data centers. This is not an investment, it's a financial black hole. And now you might be saying, are those GPUs being used? No. Because in 2026, the technology sector is actively constructing a dark GPU bubble, and Mark Zuckerberg is part of the problem. They're building out compute capacity that wildly exceeds actual proven internal production needs. Everyone is buying chips out of sheer, unadulterated FOMO, Mark Zuckerberg included. Technology executives publicly claim to Wall Street that they're desperately compute constrained, crying to their investors that they need more chips, and Mark Zuckerberg proves that this is just not true. So then, they're desperately trying to monetize dormant silicon before the entire bubble bursts, which is the exact opposite problem Apple was having, where they completely reorganized their pricing hierarchy and kind of caused a little bit of a collapse. But you can watch that video on your screen right now where I talk about that exact thing, or you can just get the fuck out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.